He promised the future of transportation, AI-powered scooters in every city, zero carbon emissions, and returns that would turn everyday people into millionaires. But behind the glossy branding, behind the stage press events, and flashy investors lay a global web of lies so massive it swallowed over $4 billion from the pockets of unsuspecting victims across 3 continents. This is the true story of François Dubois, the man who built an empire out of air and vanished just before it all came crashing down. The man with the electric dream. François Dubois didn't look like a scammer. He looked like the next Elon Musk. In 2018, at a sleek conference in downtown Montreal, a sharply dressed man in his early 40s took the stage. With perfect posture and a subtle French accent, he introduced his company, Voltscoot Mobility, Inc. Our goal, he said, is to bring sustainable transportation to the masses using AI, blockchain, and high-efficiency electric scooters. The room erupted in applause. By the end of that week, François had secured over $2.5 million in seed funding. But what no one knew was this: there were no scooters. Not one. What François was building wasn't a scooter empire. It was a phantom. A global, digital Ponzi scheme hidden behind buzzwords and branding. To set up how the scheme was born, at the peak of the electric scooter boom, when companies like Bird and Lime were valued at billions, François saw an opening. He registered Voltscoot Mobility Incorporated in British Columbia and began constructing a story. 1 part Silicon Valley, 1 part climate crusader, and 1 part crypto visionary. His pitch was irresistible. A fleet of smart scooters using blockchain tech to track rides and reduce theft. Eco grants from the UN and partnerships with cities like Toronto, San Francisco, and Hong Kong. AI predictive charging stations already under development in Shenzhen. All of it was a lie. The AI charging stations were AI-generated mock-ups. The UN grants were forged. And the Hong Kong headquarters? Just a WeWork with a fake front desk. Yet, investors didn't ask too many questions. Why would they? François paid on time. At first, the global hook. Voltscoot's brilliance wasn't the technology, it was an illusion. François launched an aggressive marketing campaign across 3 continents. Facebook ads in Florida and Texas promising 15% monthly returns. Crypto influencers in Hong Kong touting Voltscoot as the Tesla of transportation. Mandarin-translated websites targeting retirees and middle-class citizens looking for a secure future. Everywhere, François tailored the message to fit the culture. In Canada, he emphasized climate change. In the U.S., it was about freedom from oil and Wall Street. In Hong Kong, he sold the idea of smart city investment through blockchain. The result? Over 320,000 people bought in. Some put in a few thousand. Others sold homes, mortgaged properties, and cashed out retirement savings. And it all went to François. Voltscoot operated like a movie set. François rented office buildings in San Francisco, Toronto, and Kowloon, but only for photo shoots. He paid influencers to tour the spaces and record stage walkthroughs. The scooters featured were borrowed or digitally edited. At one investor conference in Vancouver, attendees were shown a Voltscoot prototype, a refurbished Xiaomi scooter with a Voltscoot sticker on it. But here's where it gets darker. To silence suspicion, François hired actors to play company executives. They appeared in Zoom calls, gave presentations, even faked engineering updates. François even hosted fake product launch events streamed on Facebook Live, using stock footage and looped applause. Voltscoot wasn't selling scooters. It was selling franchises. Investors were told they could own territories, Los Angeles, Calgary, Kowloon, and more. They received monthly earnings from every ride taken in their zones. François even promised that Voltscoot was pre-IPO, and early backers would receive shares worth 50x returns in under 12 months. To maintain the illusion, François paid early investors with funds from new victims. He created a Vote wallet that displayed fake daily earnings on a dashboard. Monthly payouts were generated using pre-written scripts and back-end manipulation. But by late 2020, cracks began to show. A group of investors in Hong Kong visited the Kowloon address listed on their contract. They found a vacant floor, no scooters, no staff, no Vote Scoot. Rumors began to circulate on Reddit and Telegram. Posts titled as Vote Scoot Real were quietly deleted. François responded swiftly. He claimed the Hong Kong office had relocated due to COVID. He blamed supply chain delays for the absence of scooters. He promised an NFT scooter project was launching to stabilize investor dividends. But behind the scenes, François had already moved over $600 million into offshore crypto wallets registered in Seychelles. He began selling personal assets: a villa in the south of France, a yacht docked in Miami, private jets booked under shell company names. And just when investigators began sniffing around, François made one final move. In February 2023, François Dubois boarded a private jet from Montreal to Nice, France, using a diplomatic passport from a country that doesn't exist. What happened next would shock even the most seasoned international investigators. He fled with over $4 billion, vanished across borders, and nearly rewrote the playbook on modern financial fraud. But just as François Dubois believed he'd escaped justice, an international manhunt closed in, revealing secrets deeper, darker, and more twisted than anyone imagined. When François Dubois stepped off that private jet in Nice, France, he wasn't a criminal. He was a ghost. He'd traveled under a forged diplomatic passport from a made-up micronation called the Sovereign Republic of Almara, a fake state used by fraudsters to evade extradition. Interpol had already issued a red notice. But François was slippery. He moved between private estates, communicated via burner phones, and disguised himself with subtle facial surgery. Yes, plastic surgery. He even attempted to secure citizenship by investment in Antigua using a Panamanian shell company. But he made one critical mistake. He trusted someone. In March 2023, French authorities received an anonymous tip from a local housekeeper in Ise, a coastal village near Monaco. She recognized his photo from a Facebook post shared by a Vote Scoot victim's daughter in Toronto. 2 days later, SWAT teams raided the villa. François was found sipping wine on a balcony, reading The Art of War. His arrest was live-streamed on several Telegram channels, a poetic twist for a man who sold lies through screens. The trial of François Dubois began in November 2023 in the Southern District Court of New York. It was dubbed the Crypto Scooter Case and became one of the most watched financial crime proceedings in history. The court was flooded with victims: a retired bus driver from Kansas who lost his pension, a widowed mother from Hong Kong who invested her son's college fund, a Nigerian entrepreneur who hosted Vote Scoot seminars across Africa, only to find out it was all fake. François arrived in a tailored suit, calm, collected, and disturbingly confident. His defense? I never promised certainty. I promised opportunity. He argued that Vote Scoot was a vision, and that startup failure doesn't equal fraud. But prosecutors tore through his narrative. They revealed fake balance sheets generated by AI tools, over 400 offshore accounts tied to crypto tumblers, wire fraud, identity theft, and racketeering charges stretching across 7 countries. Perhaps most damning was the discovery that Vote Scoot had never applied for a single license to operate scooters anywhere. As testimony rolled in, the court became a place of mourning. A 66-year-old Canadian man broke down on the stand. "I told my granddaughter she'd never have to worry about college," he whispered. "She's now working 2 jobs because of him." In Hong Kong, protests erupted outside the U.S. consulate. Victims held up signs reading, "Vote Scoot took our future." In Lagos, a group of scam investors formed a legal alliance to push for restitution. They called it Scooter Justice. Netflix optioned the story rights midway through the trial. TikTok trended with a hashtag scooter scam. François? He simply stared, stone-faced, as his empire crumbled. On April 11, 2024, the verdict came in. Guilty on 17 counts. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, criminal impersonation, obstruction of justice. The judge, in a now viral moment, looked directly at François and said, "Mr. Dubois, you sold people a future and left them with nothing but digital dust." This wasn't innovation. This was devastation. François was sentenced to 110 years in federal prison with no chance of parole. He offered a short final statement. History will remember me differently. He was wrong. Despite global efforts, only $428 million of the stolen $4.2 billion has been recovered. Here's where the rest allegedly went. $200 million laundered through Dubai real estate. $90 million in crypto now frozen on off-grid wallets. $1.3 billion believed to be in phantom tokens and unrecoverable exchanges. And over $2 billion still missing, scattered across ghost entities, shell banks, and dead-end trails. Some victims have recovered pennies on the dollar. Most will never be made whole, but they're not silent. François Dubois will never again walk free, but his legacy, like all great cons, is still teaching us lessons. Volt Scoot exposed a deadly mix of tech hype, greed masked as opportunity, and trust exploited at scale. In a world obsessed with the next big thing, François sold a fantasy we all want to believe in. A zero-emission future, a smart city promise, an escape from poverty. But sometimes the biggest red flag is a story that sounds too perfect. François Dubois convinced the world that the future was just a scooter ride away. But what he really sold was an illusion. And when the ride ended, all that was left was silence. For those he deceived, justice came. Too little, too late. And for the rest of us, a reminder. If the prophets are unbelievable, they probably are